It's pretty wild to think about a company that started out just making video games look better and somehow became the single most critical piece of the entire AI economy. That company, of course, is NVIDIA. And today, we're going to dig into how they literally built the foundation for our technological future.
And this quote, it absolutely nails it. Look, we're in the middle of a massive AI gold rush, right? Well, NVIDIA isn't just another prospector hoping to strike it rich. Oh no, they're the ones selling the picks, the shovels, the maps, the entire toolkit to everybody else. And as we're about to see, that is a profoundly powerful place to be.
So, here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll unpack how NVIDIA became the engine for this whole AI revolution. Then, we'll get into the jaw-dropping numbers that really prove their dominance. After that, we'll take a peek into their trillion-dollar future, break down what all this means for an investor, and finally, figure out how they plan to defend this incredible position.
So, how on earth did a company known for gaming get here? I mean, really, to understand NVIDIA's power today, you have to get this one fundamental shift in technology that put them right at the center of the universe. It all boils down to this one idea: accelerated computing. Let me put it this way. A normal computer chip, a CPU, it's like a master chef. Super skilled, can make one really complex meal perfectly. But an NVIDIA GPU, that's like an entire kitchen with 10,000 cooks all working at the same time, each one handling one simple part of the recipe. To build AI, you don't need the master chef, you need the giant kitchen. And that's why everyone building an AI factory is lining up at NVIDIA's door. Okay, so that's the big idea. But, talk is cheap. How big is this leadership really? Let's dive into the cold, hard numbers, because they tell a story that's pretty hard to argue with. Let's just ask the big question right out of the gate. And fair warning, the numbers we're about to see are, well, they're just staggering. So for fiscal year 2026, NVIDIA is on track to pull in over $215 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That's not a typo. That's the sound of a whole new industrial revolution being built, and they're providing the tools. And look, it's not just the sheer size, it's the speed. Growing 65% year over year is almost unheard of for a company this big. It just shows you this absolutely insatiable, accelerating demand for their tech from literally every corner of the planet. Now, this number right here, this is crucial. Gross margins hanging around 75%. That means for every dollar of stuff they sell, 75 cents is gross profit. That signals unbelievable pricing power. Customers don't just want their products, they feel like they need them. And that lets NVIDIA capture a massive amount of the value. And if you were wondering where all that power comes from, well, just look at this chart. That enormous piece of the pie, nearly 90% of all revenue, comes from their data center business. This isn't some diversified tech giant anymore. It is, for all intents and purposes, an AI company, period. Okay, so those numbers tell us where NVIDIA is right now. But what about where it's going? The roadmap they've laid out shows a pipeline of demand so massive, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The company's CEO is on the record talking about a visible demand pipeline of over $1 trillion for their next-gen stuff. Think about that. That's a level of confidence about future revenue that you almost never see in the tech world. And this is exactly how they planned to stay on top. It's not about one single hit product. It's this relentless annual innovation cycle. The current platform, Blackwell, has what they call insane demand. But look, the next generation, Rubin, is already slated for 2026 with even bigger performance jumps. This breakneck pace forces competitors to constantly play catch-up. So with all this incredible growth, the big question is always, is the hype real? Is the stock just way too expensive at this point? Let's put on our investor hat for a minute and look at the company's valuation and what it actually does with all that cash. Okay, if you look at this table, something really interesting pops out. That trailing PE, which looks at the price based on past earnings, seems high. But the forward PE, that's the one that looks at the price relative to expected future earnings, is way more reasonable at around 24x. It tells you that once you factor in the explosive growth, today's price might not be as crazy as it first looks.
So NVIDIA is just printing cash right now. What do they do with it all? Well, they're making a very clear choice. Instead of sending out big dividend checks to shareholders, they're plowing basically everything back into the business, funding more research and buying back their own stock. It's a classic full-throttle growth strategy.
And that brings us to maybe the most important question of all. Can anyone actually catch them? I mean, with this much success, you know the competition is coming. To answer that, we have to understand the powerful moat NVIDIA has dug around its kingdom.
See, NVIDIA's defenses have multiple layers. It's not just that they have the best hardware. The real lock-in, the secret weapon, is their CUDA software. Think of CUDA as the special programming language that millions of AI developers have spent years learning. To switch to a competitor, entire companies would have to retrain their teams. The cost and headache of doing that is just enormous, and that creates a very, very deep moat.
But let's be realistic. No company is invincible, and it's super important to be clear-eyed about the risks. Geopolitics could suddenly cut off huge markets. The AI spending boom could hit a wall if companies don't start seeing a real return on investment. You bet competitors are working day and night to catch up, and relying on just one key partner for manufacturing, that's always a risk. These are all real things to keep an eye on.
All right, we've gone through the tech, the numbers, the future roadmap, and the potential risks. So let's just tie this all together. What is the core story here? What's the bottom line?
The thesis is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. 1. NVIDIA is at the absolute center of the AI universe, providing the essential tools. 2. Its dominance isn't hype, it's proven by staggering financials. 3. Its future is incredibly clear with a visible trillion-dollar pipeline of demand. And 4. Its position is defended by a deep, durable, competitive moat that's really hard to cross.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending thought. As AI becomes as fundamental to our world as, say, electricity, and as NVIDIA just keeps getting bigger and bigger, you have to wonder, is its biggest competitor in the future not another company, but simply the law of large numbers itself?